Hi, my name is Leon Hurley. I am Associate Editor for officialplaystationmagazine.co.uk.
And I'm Matt Elliott and I'm from CVG.
Now this is Spec Ops The Line, which you reviewed for us. Can you just sort of set up what we're seeing here? How does the game start? What is it about?
So it's got this like fairly massive sort of bombastic intro where you're coming into Dubai on sort of a helicopter shooting out the side with a railgun blowing up other helicopters, and it's quite as intros to games go, it's quite a good eye-opening one. It sets the scene quite nicely, because it is sort of from start to finish. It's quite a sort of a non-stop, in-your-face, quite nasty game. Really, it doesn't let up from the moment.
That's meant to be its thing, isn't it? It's supposed to be this sort of dark, twisted shooter. That's what they sort of have been leaning on. I mean, we can see weird, spooky things here. Does it deliver on that?
To a point. I think the closest thing that I felt when I was playing it was, I don't know if you've seen Jacob's Ladder. Yeah. That kind of sort of like an underlying sense of things not being quite right and you're not exactly sure why. And for the most part, it's sort of fairly successful. Like Dubai itself, they've made a really kind of oppressive and unpleasant place to be. Sort of as a shooter and sort of mechanically, I don't think that side of stuff holds up to the kind of the intention, but as a story on its own, I think it is quite interesting. I'm sure you're probably aware that it's all sort of based on Heart of Darkness and sort of the inspiration for Apocalypse Now. And that sort of moral aspect of it, that you feel that throughout, but it's quite sort of binary. Like your two teammates, you know, one will always sort of encourage you to take one choice, and the other will encourage you to take the other. And I think when you get to the end, without wishing to spoil anything, there is sort of a payback for the choices you make. But in terms of it having like a huge effect on your story, it isn't that obvious if it does or not. And it's sort of, it's not underwhelming, but it's sort of slightly like quite a confusing feeling, and I think the story is definitely the best thing about it, and that feeling of it sort of setting itself apart from other shooters because it is quite different. That's great, but I honestly can't say that I felt it was a wholly enjoyable experience, because it's quite a nasty piece of work. So
we saw, I mean, we see the sand here. We saw earlier like some sand being dropped on people and stuff. They made a big thing about the idea it was going to be sandy. Does it deliver when you play it? Do you feel like it's an integral part of the game?
It's not like a completely dynamic thing, which is, I think, is perhaps what it was sold at. Like you will see things that you will know, like here is where I'm supposed to shoot that, and the sand will happen. Where it works at best is sort of where we're seeing here, is when guys are on the sort of ceiling shooting down at you, and that sort of feels a little bit more dynamic. You can shoot the glass out from underneath them and things, but it's often quite not scripted, but you're sort of given a heads up as to when that's going to happen. When you do it, it is quite sort of an exciting, different change. But again, the problem with a lot of the game is that you're sort of struggling against like a cover shooter that perhaps isn't as slick as it could be.
I was going to say, the cover shooting we're seeing here looks fairly kind of stock kind of gameplay. You know, lock to cover, pop out, shoot a few rounds.
I go a little bit further than that and say it's sort of not as good as what we've come to expect. Like compared to even something like Binary Domain, which was fun but quite an average game. This feels a little bit shakier. Like the mechanic of popping in and out is quite shaky, and you're not going to be able to see it here, but when you pop into cover, if you turn around 360, it pops you out. So you know when you're in a sort of an environment where you're being flanked by people, people are coming around to your side. If you turn around to see where they are, suddenly you're out of cover. And in the later levels in the game, you're not a very sort of robust character. You can take 2 or 3 hits tops, and it does get quite tough a bit later on.
What did you give it in the end?
I gave it a 6.